Hello children, this is Geography for Class 6 and we are dealing with the chapter Major Landforms. Today our topic is valleys. So the question is, what is a valley? A valley, children, is one of the most common landforms on the earth, and they are formed through erosion or the gradual wearing down of the land by wind and water. Alright, so these valleys are extended depressions in the earth's surface, and usually they have hills or mountains surrounding them. Normally a river or a lake or a stream may be at the bottom of the valley, but sometimes it may also be dry. A valley is not just a small narrow place at the bottom of a mountain, but it can actually extend for many kilometers. How are valleys formed? Valleys, children, can be formed in two ways. One is through the endogenic process and the other one is through the exogenic process. Now what are these big sounding names, endogenic and exogenic? Okay. So endogenic means, the word endo means inside, coming from within, and exo means outside, which is from outside. So endogenic forces, as you may have guessed, are earthquakes, volcanoes, and other tectonic movements, when the earth's crust moves. And exogenic is when outside forces act on mountains, like snow or water or wind. These processes are called weathering and erosion. So depending on how the valleys are formed, they are of three types. One is the V-shaped valley or the alluvial valley. The second one is the U-shaped valley or glacial valley, and the third one is the rift valley. So let's deal with each one. Here in this figure, which is given in your textbooks also, you will see in the first picture that you have that the water has cut through the land and gone right down. This is vertical erosion. Over time, the sides of the mountain get weathered, alright? Wind, water acts on them, rain falls on them. So over time they become looser and they collapse. The third picture shows the mass movement where they collapse. This leads to the formation of the V-shaped valley. So the V-shaped valley, these are formed by rivers. That's why they are also called the alluvial valley, because these rivers bring down alluvium or silt from the higher reaches. These valleys, children, they are formed by strong streams or rivers which over time cut down through the rocks through a process which is called down cutting. These valleys form in the mountainous or high areas, and when the river is young, then the river flows very fast, right? So very narrow and steep sided valleys are formed. So when these kinds of valleys are formed, they are called gorges. Here you can see the Yumthang Valley. You have the steep slopy sides of the valley, and right down there is your river flowing by. The next type of a valley is a U-shaped valley. In this diagram you can see that they are glaciers, right? And the glacier is moving downwards. So at the bottom of the ice you can see pieces of rocks and stones which is moving on the mountain. Alright, and because they are rocks and stones, they are very rough, so they are scratching the surface of the floor and they are making it smooth and creating a valley. So these U-shaped valleys, children, they are formed by glaciers. That's why they are also called glacial valleys. Alright, so these valleys are found where there is lots and lots of ice. Alright, and they have wide flat floors and vertical or steep sides. Now sometimes, of course, all the glaciers are not big. They may be small glaciers also. So these small glaciers may move against a certain portion of the mountain, not necessarily at the bottom. So when these shallow types of valleys are formed, they are called the hanging valleys. So here you have a picture of a glacial valley. Here you can see the steep sides and the river of ice that's moving at the bottom. The third type of valley that we are doing is the Rift Valley. In this diagram, you can see that it looks quite similar to the formation of block mountains that you had done. If you turn your pages and go back to the mountains, then you will remember the block mountains that we had done, wherein you learned that sometimes the ground breaks up. So when the ground breaks up, the portion that's in between may rise up. And when it rises up, it forms block mountains. Yes? But in this diagram, you can see that the land, instead of moving closer together, is moving apart. That can be shown by the two arrows that's given there. So when the land moves apart, the central portion will of course not rise up, it will collapse. So when it collapses, that portion forms your Rift Valley. So this valley is formed when the land tears up through a process called faulting. Alright? This kind of a formation is also known as graben. So these valleys have steep and very nearly identical and vertical sides, and they have wide flat floors. Here you can see the Narbada River and the steep sides of the mountain and the Rift Valley at the bottom. So now we finally come to the usefulness of the valleys. Why are valleys useful? Since the beginning of time, children, people, human beings, have found out that valleys are a very useful part for their existence. Alright, they discovered that rivers are very important and the valleys are always very, very fertile. And of course, people in those days did not have railways and all, so they saw that the rivers enabled easier movement and also provided various resources like water, good soil, fish, and so on. Alright? And of course, these valleys also were much warmer. They were not as cold as the mountains and hills. Okay? And even if there was a thunderstorm or bad weather on the mountains, the valleys would be relatively safer, much warmer, and the crops would be protected. So people started settling in the valleys. They started building roads and railways. They started cultivating different things like crops, like fruit trees, and a variety of flowers. Okay, and they also grew grass, which made it much easier for them to rear up animals. So that is why valleys became very, very useful for human beings. With that, we have come to the end of our subtopic, valleys. Please go through the chapter, go through this video, learn it up, see what you have understood. If you have any doubts, you are always free to message me. Thank you, children, and have a good time. Bye-bye.